Imagine digging a hole through a mountain of unstable granite, 16 feet high by 12 feet wide, almost 2,000 feet long. Then imagine doing this using only hand tools. Oh, and you're at an altitude of 12,000 feet. And did I mention you'd have to do this in the dead of winter? As unpleasant, if not impossible, as that sounds, such a tunnel actually was chiseled through the mountains of central Colorado between 1880 and 1882. The Alpine Tunnel lies at a breathtaking altitude of 11,523 feet between Buena Vista and Gunnison. Built by the Denver, South Park, and Pacific Railroad for its line to Gunnison, it operated until 1910. The Alpine Tunnel was the first to pierce through North America's continental divide, and for most of its existence it held the title of the highest railroad tunnel in the world. The few miles of railroad on either side of the tunnel included some of the most difficult and fantastic civil engineering of the 19th century. Some of my first and fondest memories as a young kid are of our visits to the tunnel on our annual summer vacations in Colorado. It sparked my lifelong love affair with history. I would dream about the tiny narrow-gauge steam engines panting and puffing as they strained up the steep grades, throwing columns of smoke into the sky and heaps of black cinders on the ground that I can run my hands through 100 years later. The drama captivated my young imagination. I still take a pilgrimage to the tunnel every year to reconnect with those simpler times and to experience the beauty of the area. Join me now on one of my trips to the famed Alpine Tunnel.
Hey everybody, it is a chilly September morning. I'm on the road to the Alpine Tunnel. This is an easy hike, but a really cool one. Lots of history up here, lots of fantastic scenery. Normally you can drive this road, but they have it closed off, and I'll show you in a little while why they do. A little bit of the scenery around here. So this is the beginning of what's called the palisades, which are big rock walls built on the side of the mountain here. Basically, these mountains are just cliffs. And in order to build the railroad over here, they had to build these rock walls so that they would have room to build the railroad on the mountain. So these things are 140 years old. They were built without mortar, and they're basically just as strong today as they were back then. So this is the biggest of all the palisades. It's probably about as long as a football field. At its high point, probably 50 feet. And then up here is why the road is closed right now. A few years ago, there was a big avalanche through here in the winter, and it came down the chute right here, and it ripped this giant hole in the palisade. Which was a huge historical loss, but it also closed down the road. Last I heard, they got funding to stabilize this, and they will start next spring, so the spring of 2022. And then they're working on a grant to repair the wall here. The difficulty was finding someone who could do this. You know, this is engineering know-how from 150 years ago. You know, you can't, like, no one really does masonry like this anymore. Giant granite blocks put together without mortar. Yeah, so they finally found a guy, and which was a miracle in itself, and if they can get funding, that'll be another miracle, and then hopefully they'll be able to reopen the road in a couple of years. Since last year. Looks like they had another slide. This is probably just a rock fall. I'm up here about once a year. I love this area. And this is the end of the palisade here, so it took out another smaller chunk of the wall. It ends about right here, but all that crap came down. Jeez. This won't be so bad to fix. They'll get this stuff moved out with a front end loader. Kind of makes me nervous walking under it though. It's just straight up. It's just a cliff. It is 3 miles to the tunnel from where the road is blocked down there. So, you know, 6 miles round trip. Not bad again. Good hike for kids if they can do 6 miles. Great for dogs. No reason dogs can't do this. We are at about 11,000 feet right in here, so this does have some hefty altitude, and the tunnel's about 11,500 or so, so I got quite a climb the next couple of miles. Cool plaque about the Palisades. You're looking at an engineering marvel. The wall before you was laid without the use of mortar. The stones used were cut so precisely that they have held in place for more than 100 years with hardly a piece displaced until the freaking avalanche. This terrace wall is 2 feet wide, 33 feet tall, and 452 feet long, so it's longer than I thought. And that's just one of them. There's several of these walls along this hike. Pretty freaking impressive. I'm the only person up here today, or at least the first person, I should say. It's a little after 9 in the morning. There was another guy down at the roadblock, but that was it. He might be coming up behind me, I guess. So this is pretty cool. This is a scale replica of what the inside of the tunnel looks like. It's lined with big 12 by 12 redwood timbers to shore it up and keep it from caving in. Although there have been cave-ins in the tunnel in the past. It's closed off now, but it's pretty tall. Some pretty cool signs inside here. Says that the tunnel averaged nearly 11 feet at the widest point and 13 feet at the tallest. So snug was the fit that the locomotives and the loaded coal cars often struck the tunnel walls in passing. It's kind of crazy. The stone building on the right was the engine house. They could drive locomotives in through the side right in there. There was a big archway. And then inside, there was a turntable where they could spin the engines around and do light repair work and fill them up with coal and water. There's a coaling platform that was built in 1906 towards the end of the tunnel's existence, or use, I should say. So this was the inside of the engine house. You can kind of see where the turntable was in here. This is recent construction here. I think volunteers just made a walkway in here so you could stand in the turntable pit. There's where the water tank was over there. Sucker was a big building. Very tall, very long. There's kind of a picture of it here. This is where the boarding house was, where the guys who worked up here would live. It was known for its warm food and hospitality. It says passenger cars would only stop for 45 minutes and everyone had to be fed in that time. So they fed passengers here too, but God, can you imagine a passenger train stopping here? And I don't know, like 50, 60 people getting out and going into the boarding house, and then you have to feed all of those people in 45 minutes? Sounds like it would be a hectic experience. Here's some of the track that the volunteers have relayed. This is not original. Over there was a stone section house where more workers would stay. And then this is the station. So this is not rebuilt. This is original. Well, I shouldn't say it hadn't completely collapsed. It was not in great shape, and then some volunteers came in and fixed it up and redid it. But it's not like they started from scratch. This is pretty much original, and it should be open. It's almost always open. Let's take a look. Oh yeah. All right. This is one of my favorite places to come hang out. Some of the artifacts people have found. This is basically the configuration of what it looked like back when it was used as a station. There was a stove there and the desk for the telegraph guy. It was a home and an office. So the telegraph operator lived in the 2 small rooms at the back of the office. So let's go check out where he lived. Hey, this is cool. Man, it's windy. Obviously the bedroom. That didn't sound good. Don't know what this was back here. Maybe kitchen or living room or something. I don't know. Alright, so we're gonna walk up to the tunnel now. It's about half a mile maybe. Probably not that far from the station. So this is really cool. This is an original switch. And there you can see it in front of us, the cut into the ridge. That is the tunnel, or where the tunnel is. Yeah, it's not half a mile. It's probably like 1/4 of a mile maybe. It's not that far. Really windy today. Alright, there it is. The portal itself collapsed years ago, but you can still see the stones at the top of the portal. So, I don't know if you can see this picture really well, but the stones that are there are the ones that are right in here. So we're about 15 feet above the rails right now. Let's go in for a closer look. I always wanted to go inside, and when I was a kid, this was probably the late 80s, maybe the early 90s, you could still see the top of the tunnel, and you could on the east side too, which is also collapsed like this now. But you could you could stick your head basically between the timbers and the ground below it. There was about that much room basically, so that's about as close as I will ever get to being inside the tunnel. It smelled very musty. I still remember the smell. It was horrible. Imagine your grandma's like closet and how that smells multiplied by like 100. Alright, I hope you can hear me with all this wind. So the next part of this hike is totally optional. Most people just come up here and do the west portal and say, hey, I've been to the Alpine Tunnel, awesome, whatever. But I'm gonna hike up Altman Pass. So this ridge is Altman Pass, and go see the east portal. It's extremely steep. It's at least 500 feet in like half a mile. And there's like 1 or 2 switchbacks, so most of it's just like, yeah, right up. So if I don't get blown off the mountain, it should be a good hike. So here we go. The trail's decent. It's narrow, but easy to follow in most places. But it's a workout. Be warned. Good for dogs though. And it's not technical. Good look at the valley the station is in. Made it to the top. So it isn't as steep as the west side, but it is a lot rockier. Alright, so now we're off Altman Pass, and we're on this long fill that curves into the tunnel. The Great Alpine Tunnel. By the way, this thing is about 1,800 feet long, so it was short, really, by tunnel standards, I guess. But what is so great about it is that they built it by hand. Didn't really use explosives, just a bunch of dudes with picks and shovels. Yeah, at 11,500 feet. Where just walking around can leave you breathless. And these guys were hammering into solid rock for 1,800 feet. And then when they got done, like they started from both the east and the west side, and when they got done, like the two parties met in the middle and they were off less than an inch. Kind of crazy when you think about it, when, you know, they didn't have computers or 3D modeling or any of that kind of stuff. They did all their calculations on pencil and paper, and they were off by less than an inch. I'm on my way back down now. Thanks for joining me on the hike. I hope you learned something about the Alpine Tunnel. Definitely a fun hike to do. Hopefully in a few years you can drive up to the west portal again. Yeah, kind of a hidden gem here in Colorado. Lots of history, lots of great scenery. So hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for tuning in, y'all.